What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting all the way across the city from me this week and every week, he's the king of all VR kings. He's the sofa king himself. It's Jeremy King.
Right? And there's a sofa behind me. Why did I just realize that now? That sofa king and a sofa is like right over my shoulder. And on the opposite end of the city, way over there, but so close, I can almost smell his musk. It's Bryan. Oh.
Hey, and every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we dip into the PlayStation VR archive. We pull out a game at random, we dust the blow off it, we play the crap out of it, we see if it's been given any love by developers, any updates, any DLC, and then we let you know, the loyal game cats, if it's worth your time. In other words, it's a re-review, folks. It's a re-review. All right.
Yeah.
What game did we decide to re-review this week?
The Walking Dead Onslaught version what?
I think it's 1.05, if I remember correctly, and that's by Survios, released on September 29th, 2020, for $30, $29.99. Man, what kind of game is The Walking Dead Onslaught?
It's a zombie survival game, hack and slash.
You know, we don't want to sit here and compare The Walking Dead Onslaught one-to-one to Saints and Sinners the entire time, but it is very important to note what the differences are, so that if you are trying to decide between each one of these games, I mean, there's two Walking Dead games, both in VR, that both came out, you know, within the course of the same year. You know, it's important from a consumer standpoint to know which one you want to buy. And so I almost kind of want to start off this episode by kind of pointing out the differences and letting people know what this game offers that something like Saints and Sinners doesn't. Off the top of your head, what are the differences to you?
I almost feel like, in hindsight, because it's been a while since I played the Saints and Sinners. Saints and Sinners, I think, was a little more, dare I say, RPG heavy in a sense, where there was a little more interaction, story-driven narrative than this game is. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there was definitely a little bit more moving parts to it, more components.
Yeah, it was. I felt like it was slower paced. You would get thrown into a section of the world, and then you would be kind of like, you know, hiding behind cars and going, you know, do I want to creep past this walker? Do I have, you know, ammunition to kill him? Do I have a weapon to kill him? This, I think, Onslaught is for the arcade crowd. It's for people who want something more fast-paced, less
run and gun.
Yeah, like no stealth really.
No.
It's just like, you know, you want to take down as many walkers as fast as possible. You want to feel like a king in the zombie apocalypse instead of a survivor in the zombie apocalypse. You want to run around and just take everybody down and feel like a fucking badass. Whereas Saints and Sinners, you felt very much like a human and very susceptible to attacks.
Yeah.
We want to focus on the positive first, man. What do we love about this game? What do we really like about this one?
For me personally, because there was a few parts to this game, I would say, surprisingly for me, because initially I didn't like this part of it, but after playing the game, it became more of the part that I enjoyed, which was kind of the scavenging, going out for supply runs. I thought that was pretty neat, because they have that Fortnite kind of a fog of war that kind of closes in around you, so to speak. So as you're trying to grab items running from down the road, door to door, you also have this fog of war that's closing in, that's represented by like red almost. And then you hear a lot of the zombies. So when you're in a building, you can hear that growing sense of all these walkers coming at you. And you're like, oh my God. And you got to push your luck, maybe go up the stairs, get out of the stairs, and then see the one, and you just made it where the horde is coming. You know, I found that right there was got my heart racing, my little ticker.
Yeah.
Like a hummingbird.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. That was absolutely my favorite part of the game, too. The game is divided into basically story missions where you sit around a campfire and you talk to Daryl, and he kind of like recounts something that happened to him, and then like it fades back to the past, and then you're playing as Daryl, and he's sort of like narrating the whole time. And those are like kind of slower paced parts of the game. But then the other half of the game are these supply runs where you pick one of four characters, Rick, Daryl, Michonne, or Carol, and you're basically dropped off at the beginning of, it's almost like a really long corridor, right? It's like, yes, it's a piece of a city, but it's sort of blocked off. You run down like kind of a main street. There's doors to
Yeah.
kind of jump in. You're like, I want to go in that door, or just skip all the doors and just keep running.
Go straight to the end. Yeah.
Exactly. But the idea, of course, is to see as much of the level as possible and grab as many supplies as you can along the way. Because
Hmm.
once you grab all that stuff and you bring it back to the Alexandria safe zone, this all takes place around like season 9 for anyone keeping pace on the on the TV show. You bring it all back to the Alexandria safe zone, which initially is like this big open field, but then something that I love in any game is the sense of progression
Hmm.
and being able to like start checking off boxes and being like, oh yeah, like my attack level is like at the level 1, now it's level 2, now it's level 3, and then when you finally max out each one, I feel a sense of accomplishment. Like
Hmm.
that is what I love about games, is a sense of progression, and I
Yeah.
feel like my character and is getting stronger, and I'm completing all the tasks that need to be done in the game. Um, and that's kind of what rebuilding the Alexandria safe zone is. So we're talking about these different types of runs, the story runs, and then the supply runs. No
Yeah.
matter which one you're doing, you're bringing all this stuff back and you're building up the Alexandria safe zone. But what you're really doing are basically just stat building.
Yeah.
And so we'll get more into that later, and maybe what it doesn't do right. But I still liked being able to check off those boxes and saying, oh, now I'm stronger. Oh, good, now I have more HP. Oh, good, now whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's a really, really good feeling.
And they do it in a kind of neat way where it shows the strength of Alexandria. As that increases, you increase your strength. So it correlates. I like how they hide your progress of you personally as a character in how you're strengthening the commune.
So again, yeah, this obviously takes place in the TV show universe. Again, where Saints and Sinners takes place in the comic book universe. Uh,
Mhm.
and so you're going to see characters that you're familiar with. You're going to see Rick, Daryl, Michonne, and Carol. And I guess I should clarify. You don't really get to see all of them. You supposedly get to play as all of them. And Daryl would be the one voice actor that actually made it over from the TV show.
Yeah, yeah. Norman Reedus. I mean, he's everywhere though.
Yeah.
He's like, embracing the horror genre and the persona that he's taken upon, where other people want to like shy away from it.
Mm.
You know?
Which obviously brings up the question: what did we think of the other voice actors? It's where things start to go south, I think.
Yeah, yeah. This is for me. I feel like the others being Carol, Michonne, and I think that was it. Besides Rick,
Mm-hmm.
who you play as, I feel like the worst was the person who voiced Rick,
Yeah.
because they really tried to somehow put an infliction on their voice to be like Rick, when Rick really didn't have an infliction. He was, I don't know, he does, but not heavily like this dude did in the game. And it was so distracting that I was more analyzing, why would he say the words like that instead of just going with it and hearing the narrative back and forth. It was jarring, almost, in my opinion.
I'm totally with you. I would have rather heard somebody who didn't sound at all like Rick and didn't try to sound like Rick than somebody
Yeah.
who was trying not to sound like themselves to sound more like Rick and then failing.
Yeah.
It was very distracting.
Mhm.
And the problem is, if it was just like, oh hey, I'm Rick. Oh hey, I'm Daryl, and then the story moved on. That would be great. But there's so much interaction between Rick and Daryl. It's because half of this game is the story missions. Again, you're sitting around a campfire with Daryl, and you're recounting all the stuff that sort of led up to this point. And this is for me. When somebody says, should I play this game? I'm like, I don't know. How important is story to you? Because if story is important to you, then like this is a major negative to me. This story, not only does it not go anywhere, but it's also not told very well, and it just drags and drags and drags through 7 chapters. The entire time you're waiting for something, like anything to happen, and it's sort of like giving you these little pellets of story where you're like, oh, there's like this gang that's like killing. It's like it just never feels like it really ramps up. You never meet those people. It's always, whenever you're encountering a person, it's a voice from inside a police car, or it's a voice from the other side of this door, and that you
Yep.
never actually get to meet a person, and it all just feels so shallow because of that.
Yeah. It was like Lost, where Lost over X amount of seasons, they gave you a lot of lore and legends and story building, and they gave you the answers to some and did not for the others. But at least you felt like you accomplished something by seeing their journey and reaching the end. Where this game was the opposite. It was like there was basically one mystery, if they will, that they wanted to kind of reveal, but they just always teased about it instead of just being like, "Well, you just fucking tell me," like. So it was almost, the story was frustrating, and I agree with you. The campfire is where you sat, and Daryl told you the story, and as you're playing as Daryl, you hear Rick and Daryl's voices back and forth as you go through the mission. Like Daryl would be like, I needed to find a weapon. So you're like, oh, there's a weapon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it gave you that feel, but the way which is a common way to tell a story. It's been done a fucking million times before, but the way that they did it, it honestly seemed like juvenile. Like they took that concept and that type of storytelling, but it was very, very basic and unfulfilling, to
Yeah.
say the least.
No, 100%. Like this was done really, really well in games like Bastion, to a lesser
Yes.
extent in Freediver Triton Down. I remember in Freediver there was a point where where you'd walk up to like this locked door and you're like trying to open it, and like you hear the character's voice says, I tried to go through this door but it was locked," and I was like, "Oh, okay, so stop messing with this."
Yeah.
And it felt like I was part of the story. I was living it as she was telling it, and I was like this, and I just loved that feeling. And Bastion, of course, did it to an amazing degree.
Yeah.
But this, and I was excited because this seemed like it was doing the same thing, but there were so many times where it could have been done or used more effectively. Like you walk into this warehouse and he's like, I was looking for this blah blah blah, and then you're like, oh, okay, I have to look for this thing, to operate this lift. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, good. He just kind of like, by telling the story, he gave me the objective that I need, and then you find the thing that you need. And then like a message pops up on the screen that says, kill the rest of the walkers in the area, or whatever it says. Like it says clear out the area. And I was like, well, why? Why don't I just take the thing that I have and run
Yeah.
back and use it? Like why?
Get
why
out of here.
Right? Why isn't Daryl now going, into the narrative and saying, but I wanted to make sure I took down every walker before I attempted to operate the lift. Why didn't he say that and make me go, okay, I should kill all the walkers? That's an excellent point, Daryl. I should kill all the walkers because I need to use this thing safely, when I just want to run back to the thing and use it. And I will say that actually, at first I really enjoyed all the story stuff, because eventually the supply runs start looking the same. Like once you do like 3, 4, 5 of them, it's like they almost start taking pieces of those levels and start like stitching them together in different ways.
Yeah.
And you're like, you come out of a door and you're like, oh, wait, I feel like I've been here before. Oh, because I have. Like it.
Yeah.
But at least with the story, it's like every single level, every single one of those 7 levels is brand new. You're like, ooh, now I'm in a grocery store. Oh, now I'm in a whatever. Now I'm in a here. Now I'm in a there. And and it feels new and fresh. But again, it doesn't feel new and fresh. You're just like, oh, this just looks different, and I'm not doing anything different. And in fact, we haven't talked about the combat yet, which we probably should. I'm gonna mention right now that version 1.05, if you read the patch notes, once you've updated your game, it's just pages and pages of like these like small little minute details that the developers worked on, that they updated. They basically balanced every single weapon and every single upgrade for each weapon to make everything kind of work better and feel like it's more effective. But one of my major complaints about this game from the get-go feels like it still isn't fixed, because it feels like the best way to get through this game is with the very first knife that they give you. You walk up to a walker and you take him by the neck, and you stab him in the head, you drop him, and then you walk up to the next one, you grab him by the neck, you stab him in the head, and you just keep doing that. I don't care if there's 100 walkers on the screen or 2 walkers on the screen. That is the most effective way to go. Just do this over and over and over, and it'll be boring to you as the player because this is all you're doing over and over. But it's way more effective and way more reliable than trying to pull out a gun
Oh
and
man,
and
yeah,
2, 3 headshots later, they still don't go down,
yeah.
or you miss it, or you miss because
Mhm.
like because maybe you're a bad shot, who knows, or maybe I'm a bad shot. Um, but also like and then like trying to figure out how to reload each weapon every
Reloading. Ugh.
right.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
just the weapons are unreliable, the reloading is unreliable, and I'm sure if you practice with each weapon, you can like you'll learn how to reload each single weapon, but it
Yeah.
still takes time. Whereas
Mm.
a knife,
Done. Drop the
every
corpse.
single time, you never have to worry about reloading or running out of ammo or switching
Yeah.
weapons. The weapon's never gonna break. You don't have a stamina meter. Your weapon's not gonna break. Everything's totally
No.
fine. Why would you stress out about running out of ammo or having to reload when this is all you need to do from beginning to end of the game?
Yeah. Thing's fucking made of adamantium. You don't. It never deteriorates. You just constantly jabbing. The one downside with so the projectile weapons have issues. Well, like we discussed. The reloading is awkward. The damage it puts out is pretty mediocre. So the melee weapons are by far the best,
Yeah.
but they never really feel too different from each other besides the way they kind of like handle. But I found that they stick a lot. Like if you jab somebody in the head or grab them by the throat, sometimes you're like, get off. Like they get stuck to the knife or stuck to your hand,
Yeah.
and you're like shaking them around to toss them off. And I also felt like the hit detection was not the same. So like if you had the axe or a machete
Hmm.
or the samurai sword or something like that, where you're trying to lob off and swing, sometimes you could lob off the arms, and then sometimes you could try to lob the head. I only was successful lobbing the head off, I think, twice in the game, and I didn't even try to. It just happened. I was like, ooh. I do like how they kind of fall apart a little bit. You know what I mean? You could jab them in the head and see pieces fall off.
Yeah.
You could lob an arm off. You can do all that. They have walkers that are, geared up in different ways. So that way it kind of negates how you like the ones with the riot gear on. Now you're like, oh shit, I'm fucked. It's a different tactic. So they have that. And later on in the game with the ones, certain ones had that armor with like spikes on it. So they give you some variety in that. But yeah, I didn't feel like there was any kind of, oh man, this weapon is sick. And then from there, that's like the one you went at your depot to grab your weapon, before you hit the mission when you do your loadouts for your
Right.
weapons. It was always like I took the knife, the hammer, and like some basic shit because that worked the best.
Yeah.
And just go there. The hammers, it was great.
Yeah. No, I upgraded every single weapon that I have. I upgraded every single weapon that you're able to get.
Mm-hmm.
You can upgrade 4 times, and it's not
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's more powerful, more powerful, more powerful. Now it's most powerful. It each one adds a certain attribute, something that the weapon does. And I'll tell you that like the stuff upgrading does, I found so pointless. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this slows time, and I was like, I don't need to slow fucking time. I was
It's
like,
already pretty slow.
right? How about it blows the fucking zombie's head off? How about that being
Right?
one of the upgrades?
Yeah. No
That
shit.
and so you were talking about how like you'd hit the zombie in the face and part of his face would fall off, or you hit it in the
Mhm.
jaw, part of the jaw would fall off, whatever. And it's like so they spend all of this time working on these little details that like I don't think most people are even gonna really notice when they're playing through an arcade game like this,
Yeah.
when they're just trying to go and like mow down like just hundreds and hundreds of walkers through a course of the level. So it seems like they spent a lot of time working on stuff that just didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And I think that and I think that means that there's a lot of wasted potential here.
Yeah.
All right, man. So
For sure.
we've been all over the place with this game. I think we should probably rate this sucker, though. What do you think?
Absolutely.
All
I'm
right, man.
down.
What's our rating scale? Nice and simple.
What we are, yeah. One, rush out, grab the game. You're gonna fucking love it. It's incredible. Two, hold off, wait for a sale. Save some money, and you'll enjoy it a little bit more. Three, don't bother buying it. Just go and do something else. Order a few pizzas for Bryan. Have them sent to him, and you will be happier that way.
Well, I know I'll
And
be
you
happier
too.
that way.
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
too. Yeah.
Right.
So 1, 2, or 3. What do you rate this?
This again, this is such a difficult game to rate because, people are like, well, should I get this or Saints and Sinners? And I'm like, well, I know so many people hate stamina meters and so many people hate weapon degradation,
Yeah.
and so if you're that person and like that stuff is gonna bother you, then like yeah, I mean, I guess this is the one to get of the two. But honestly, I was playing through Arizona Sunshine the other day, and now that game is old and janky and like doesn't do a whole lot of things right, but I think it does more things right than Onslaught. Like if you just want like a crazy ass zombie shooter where you're gonna walk through and just like take down hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of zombies, like pulling off headshots in Arizona Sunshine is really satisfying. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm one of the few people I think that actually really loves the move controllers, even though like kind of awkward
Yeah.
movement with Arizona Sunshine. Most people like the aim. Totally get it. I played through recently that way too. Also very satisfying. Um,
Hmm.
if you want a zombie shooter, then wait till that game is on sale and pick it up for $12 because that game's always on sale for $12.
Game's on sale quite a bit. Yeah.
If you're a Walking Dead fan though, and you're really curious about this game, like I don't think it's a bad game. I think a lot of people when this game came out, like really shit on it. It was like, this is terrible, this is awful. And my feeling was it's just mediocre from start to finish. Like it doesn't do anything terribly wrong, but it also doesn't do anything terribly right. And
Yeah.
so it's currently on sale for $20. It's usually a $30 game. And I think 20 is about the most I'd be willing to pay for this. I blasted through in about 6 hours. I say blasted through, but I felt like I took my time, or the game made me take my time, because
Yeah.
you're constantly back. You know, it forces you to jump back and forth between story and supply runs, and I didn't have a bad time, but at the same time, it just felt like it wasn't totally done. It felt like it came out of the oven way too early,
Hmm.
and it's not up to Servios's usual standards. I gave it a 6.2, I think, when I reviewed it, and maybe it's now a 6.5 with the with the few updates that it's gotten.
Updates. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not bad. It's just not great. And
Hmm.
so for me, it's a fairly weak two. Just make sure you pay 15, $20 for it, and you'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
You'll probably be fairly happy. What about you, man? What
Nice.
did you think?
So as I get older, story is big to me. That's what keeps me engaged. I don't have much time these days to play games. So when I play a game, it's not because it looks pretty or, I like the way the sword swings or whatever it might be. It's generally a fucking fascinating story that will bring me right in, and that gets me going, unless the gameplay sucks, Of course, there has to be some good gameplay.
Yeah.
So when initially I started playing this game, and I found the storytelling to be very sluggish and slow,
Hmm.
and not really even giving me anything at the end of a chapter to want to hurry up to do supply runs so I could get in and do chapter 2. It was more like, and now it's like, now I got to do supply runs, which initially I don't like supply run type of portions of games or anything in a game that gives you an option to go crafting stuff by going to get these supplies to craft. It's like, no, I'll buy my shit already crafted. I'm like one of them.
Yeah.
So when I started to have to do supply runs, and I realized that brought in survivors, which increased, when I would unlock chapters, because you have to have a certain number of survivors or something, I think,
Hmm.
however it reads, to be brought to Alexandria for you to unlock the next chapter. I was pretty annoyed again. So I was annoyed with the story. Then I was annoyed that I had to do the supply runs. But as I started doing the chapters and started doing the supply runs, I started actually enjoying the supply runs. And I found that it was fun. That fog of war that encroaches, the horde that is encroaching, did give you that sense of like panic, and like you really wanted to get more supplies because you wanted to bring more people to Alexandria and unlock more chapters and just, do the whole thing. So I found myself loving that portion. But the storytelling, again, it never panned out. Seeing it through to the end, no spoilers, but at the end, I was just like what? Like really?
Yeah.
So I just wasn't given any kind of conclusion in a weird way. It was just like, just seemed like that was it. It almost made me feel like, if I wanted the answers, then wait till part 2 comes out for X amount of money. But like, I that's more than likely not the case. But still, it gave me that feeling. And I just found that the combat could be fun. Knowing that there was no way the weapons would degrade or break over time, it made me ready for anything. You know what I mean? Like, I like when you're in a situation and you're grabbing a walker and you're like this, and all of a sudden your weapon breaks and you're surrounded by three. You're like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? There was none of that in this. It was just like, uh-oh, how am I going to stab them quicker? That's all I had to worry about. So with all that being said, it was like, I didn't love it. Certainly didn't love it, but I didn't hate it either. It's pretty much, it's like, eating a boxed chocolate cake. It's like, yeah, all right. It's a cake, but it's not a bakery made cake. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's also not a Hostess expired Twinkie or something, So I'm going with a very weak 2. I'm saying a 2. An expired 2.
Yeah.
It's a little chewy. There might be some hard spots, but hey, it still tastes good in areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is crazy, man. It is crazy because I feel like if the entire game was like just the supply runs, but fleshed out somehow, like if they had somehow been able to keep multiplayer in this game, like and have you and I could have been running down the street together, and you go this way, I'll go that way, and they're like, let's hurry up because that horde's right behind us, and we're trying to work on this survival run together or this supply run together. I actually liked walking up to the doors and instead of reaching for the handle, you just hit the door and it flies open. I love that feeling, and even though like everything is done with I know you're a lefty, but I'm a righty. It's like everything is done with your left hand. Even picking up weapons that you need to use with your right hand is done with your left hand. There was something very arcadey about that, where you run into a store and you're just grabbing everything, going chuk, 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 and everything's just like vacuum sucked into your hand, being like supply. There's something very satisfying about going grab, and then boom, running back out the door and being like seeing that the horde is right here and that you have enough time to keep moving and
go the other one.
Yeah. Do I have enough time to get into that other door? Like if they had somehow I made this less story focused and spent more time on that stuff, I feel like they could have had a winner here, man, because Servios is great at making arcade games, but I think what they're proving is that they're not so good at making narrative driven games.
Yeah. Dual wielding, they really needed it. I mean, even if it was like a gun in one hand and a handheld in the other.
It's a very good point.
And they probably said, oh, how would they reload? Well, let me worry about putting my knife away and grabbing a clip if that was the case, or just tossing a weapon and just be, grabbing a zombie and stabbing. If they left that up to the player, instead of it being, these are your guns, you got them, you can't get rid of them unless you pick up another one or we'll replace it. I thought it would have been pretty sick if I was able to shoot to back up a little bit, buy some space, toss the weapon, get back in there and start jabbing again. That would have been pretty sick.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they have a chance to make Walking Dead Onslaught 2 and finish the story that I feel like just got started, and maybe work on some of the mechanics that didn't work so well, and of course add multiplayer. And I think they'd have a winner on their hands.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Right, they showed us the hatch. Now we want to know what's in the hatch.
Man, you love Lost references. All right, guys, let us know in the comments below what you thought of Walking Dead Onslaught. Did you like it more than us? Did you like it even less than us? I mean, that's either one of these things is totally possible. I know we're going to hear from both of you, but only both of you. There's only 2 out there.
Only both of us, 2 of them. Yeah,
right.
You and I.
And also let us know what other games you want us to play. We're back in full force for 2021, and we're going to keep reviewing or re-reviewing games every single week to let you know what we think of them. For another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR, my name's Bryan Paul.
And I'm Jeremy King.
And we'll see you next week.